Thanks for listening to Curious Cat, the podcast that examines the shadowy space where science and the supernatural collide. I'm your host, Jennifer Hodes. Join me every week as I explore what it means to be a soul in a meat suit. Welcome to Curious Cat. I've been spending hours and hours on the mountain trails in the last few months, and they are beautiful, intriguing, amazing ways to plug in with nature, but also to change my vibe and get me out of my own head and my own space into something bigger. I love feeling like a speck of dirt in the grand scheme of things. My hiking boots brought me to a place in Colorado that I've become intrigued with. I go to sleep studying the map of it to find new routes up the mountain, and that place is South Table Mountain. There's one area that is a stretch of it that is, you have to go past a private property designation to go to. It doesn't stop people from going to this amazing, beautiful, striking outcrop called Castle Rock. But I've always felt, and I thought it was the rule follower in me, but I've always felt put off by that destination. And I've done all the other parts of the mountain. But then two things happened. A really weird thing, like a scene out of a horror movie after I was hiking another part of the mountain the week prior. But then my guides told me to look deeper into the place. What I uncovered next, 2 chapters of darkness. One, the murder of a woman for gold, and the other, it goes back to 1920s when the United States was facing some fiscal devastation, and it brought out the worst in people. And they were meeting in secret at the top of South Table Mountain. My guide sent me up there to do my best to change the vibe and to apologize for that. But the whole thing got me thinking, does one ugly act or one terrible era define a swath of land forever? Or is it just another layer in what we call this gorgeous planet, Mother Earth, that we need to remember so we don't repeat, but we also can build something better, layers of love and peace on top of it. Let's get into it. All right, a little background about South Table Mountain before we dive into the stories, the drama, the information. It's the sister of North Table Mountain. And in my humble estimation, North Table Mountain gets at least 10 times the visitors that South Table Mountain does. More foot traffic, more bicycle traffic, more glory. So a month ago, I found a trailhead for South Table Mountain that has only a few parking spaces in front, which guarantees that I'll have a peaceful hike. I've done it 4 times since then. My favorite path takes me along a historic ditch, which no longer carries water, and then I take a right and follow the erosion up the side of the mountain. It's a popular place for mountain biking. I watch them plummet the steep elevations and soar over the natural berms. It is thrilling to watch. The first time I climbed out of that notch, I was exhausted, surrounded by fog. I drank water and I looked ahead on the trail, seeing the silhouette of a man. I was startled. I'd had the trail to myself all morning. I continued toward the man and soon made out antlers and a long, lean body and the limbs of a man. It looked like something out of a sci-fi movie. Heart pounding, I kept going, snapping a picture with my phone camera in case somebody needed evidence to find me later or, a still shot for 48 hours. But finally, feet away now, thinning fog, I saw that it was a sculpture of a Native American. He had a deer with antlers draped around his neck, carrying his successful hunt's prize to share with his community. I laid a rock on the base of the sculpture and I went up the rest of the trail. That next stretch of the trail, check out my Instagram feed at Curious Cat Podcast because it is a skinny path that leads up an ancient sand dune. I'm talking 200 plus million year old sand. I've been told that hundreds of millions of years ago, Colorado was underwater, the floor of a landlocked sea. This took zero imagination as I stood on a dried out ocean floor. There were even bits of white shell among the petrified dunes. The haunting experience brought me back again and again. At night, like I said in the intro, I'd fall asleep studying maps as I searched for a new, fresh route up and around South Table Mountain. But after my most recent visit, something happened to me that felt straight out of a horror movie. Exhausted from the trail, sweaty, dusty, I came home and I took a shower. And as I leaned into the bathroom mirror to put some oil in my hair and brush my wet hair out, all of a sudden, all this pressure came from my right side and shoved my head over to the left. Not quite 90 degrees, but it hurt so badly. Out of my mouth came the Lord's Prayer. I just started saying it over and over and over, and the pain started subsiding. I laid on the floor, and my dog and my cat literally stuck to both sides of my one side was Opal the cat, one side was Cooper the dog, and they were trying to help me through it. And I just kept saying this prayer over and over until the pain was completely gone. And I was like, what the hell just happened? It led me to research South Table Mountain. I was realizing I had grabbed or caught on to some energy up there that was nefarious. And when I'm in nature, I'm a tree hugger. I literally stop and hug trees. I say hello to birds. I'm like a wide open heart. I protect my home spiritually. I cleanse and clear my body, myself, my pets, the people that I love. Even you, dear listener, I pray for you. Why don't I do it in nature? My whole guard is down, and it taught me I have to cleanse and clear myself when I take off my hiking boots in the garage. Cleanse and clear my energy right there too. But also when I come off the trail, say thank you for the hike, but you have to stay here energies. So the research. I did a ton of research on South Table Mountain. It led me to hike up Castle Rock. My legs were weary, and I ended up giving offerings and praying for peace and love. But before I tell you that part of the story, let's have some South Table Mountain facts. The clouds that form over Table Mountain are known locally as the tablecloth. Scientists believe that Table Mountain is roughly 360 million years old. Prior to the gold rush of the 1850s, the mountain was used by the northern Utes for ceremonies and burials, and I actually have seen some evidence of petroglyphs, but I'm not putting it out there because I don't want any harm to come to that. Ranching on the land began in the 1800s. In 1906, a cafe was built on the Castle Rock called Lava Lane, to which visitors rode on donkey back and they danced. They make it sound so rosy, right? But the rest of the story is what needs to be told today. A light needs to shine on the atrocities that happen next on South Table Mountain. Here's the best summary I found from Golden Today. Barb Warden writes, quote, I give a lot of Golden history lectures. One topic that always fascinates people is the Ku Klux Klan. The KKK was originally formed in the South right after the Civil War, but faded away in a few years. In the mid-19s, a large-scale revival of the Klan began, inspired by the movie The Birth of a Nation. I also think it was inspired by the economy that was failing. That film, though, she writes, showed a reimagined, shockingly racist version of the South during Reconstruction and depicted the Knights of the Ku Klux Klan as heroes. This second-generation Klan spread quickly throughout the U.S., including Colorado. Their tenets were pro-white Protestant and anti-anything else. They marketed themselves as a pro-morality social club and were known for burning crosses and hiding their identities beneath robes and hoods. The second Klan reached its height by popularity in the mid-1920s and crumbled by the early 1930s. I wanted to learn more about the Klan in Golden, Colorado, so I spent yesterday going through the online Colorado transcripts and searching for the words Klux and Klan, and here's what I learned. The Klan chapters throughout the Denver metro area held their gatherings on Castle Rock above Golden. They drove out to Golden on the cement road, also known as Colfax. The automobiles would be stopped by robed and hooded Klansmen on horses and their identities checked before they were allowed to proceed up South Table Mountain towards Castle Rock. During their meetings, they burned crosses, which, according to the transcript, were at least 50 feet high and could be seen for miles around. The transcripts dated 4/20/22, 9/27/23, and 10/23/23, and they described the meetings. They made very public donations to what they considered worthy causes. In 1923 and 24, the transcript told of hooded Klansmen visiting the Presbyterian, Methodist, and Baptist churches in Golden and donating money, or in one case, a rug that the church needed. In 1925, they contributed an American flag and a 50-foot flagpole to the city and installed it at the intersection of 12th and Washington. In 1926, the ladies of the KKK donated $145 to the school board for playground equipment for Golden schools. In 1927, the old dance hall on Castle Rock, which had been used as a meeting place for the KKK, burned down. People thought it was arson for sure. The Klan was beginning to die out by that time as its highest-ranking officers were indicted for embezzlement. A few attempts were made to revive the Klan during the 1930s, but for the most part it stayed dormant until the 1950s, when it was revived in the South in response to the civil rights movement. I did a little more digging and I found KDVR, and they reported this. burning crosses on Table Mountain. One of the spots on Colorado Haunted History's Golden Tour is the Castle Rock on South Table Mountain. If you know anything about the state's political climate in the 1920s, you know why. Had you lived in Denver at the time and looked west after sunset, it wouldn't have been unheard of to see a massive fireball emanating from the area once or twice a week. According to Speaking Ill of the Dead, Jerks in Colorado History, I love that title, by author Phyllis J. Perry, South Table Mountain was a popular and regular cross-burning site at the time for the Ku Klux Klan, who weren't exactly underground. During the time the Klan rose to power in the state, World War I had just come to an end, and there was still a distrust of foreigners across the country. With prohibition in full swing, bootlegging was also rampant. It was controlled in Colorado by Italian crime families in Denver and Pueblo, who kept order over their syndicates through displays of violence and with the help of corrupt members of law enforcement. The KKK, according to Hooded Empire, Ku Klux Klan in Colorado author Robert Allen Goldberg, promised it would restore public safety and order to the state, and it was a popular promise. So compelling was the Klan's message, in fact, that in 1925, a trio of Klansmen, Clarence Morley, Benjamin Stapleton, and Rice Means, held the seats of governor, Denver mayor, and U.S. senator, respectively. The Klan also owned a majority in the state House and Senate, controlled the office of the Secretary of State, and had one sitting state Supreme Court justice, along with several judges in Denver district courts. Writing about the election that saw these men voted into office, the Denver Post noted, quote, "Beyond any doubt, the KKK is the largest political force in the state." The paper didn't endorse a single candidate that year, calling them all awful. The KKK's hatred for, quote, non-American minorities in Colorado was far-reaching, evidenced by a proposal to fire all non-Protestant faculty members at the University of Colorado. The Klan-oriented politicians, at least for a time, were said to be taking orders from KKK Grand Dragon John Galen Locke. That was until 1925, when Locke was charged with kidnapping an East High School student and forcing him under threat of castration to marry a woman several months pregnant. Though Locke beat the charges, he was relieved of his duties as Grand Dragon, and the once popular public figure's reputation never recovered, nor did his health. Locke dropped dead of a heart attack during a political meeting at the Brown Palace in 1935, perhaps still haunting one of Denver's oldest establishments to this day. Though he died relatively young at 64, Locke lived to see the rise and fall of the KKK in Denver, as the group was mostly voted out of office in 1927. I did some more digging, and I found a recent article in Golden Today titled "Across on the Mountain Again," written by Barb Warden. And the article is dated from May 2024, so that's how recent it is. There are links to it in the show notes. Warden writes, "On Thursday evening, someone planted a cross on Castle Rock. Who did it? We don't know, but they left a mess, bungee cords and wood shavings. Also, why? Were they proselytizing, memorializing, or just vandalizing? Were they aware that they were echoing an incident from the past? This seemed like the right time to reprint the story of Castle Rock and the Ku Klux Klan." And she goes on to recap that article that I read in full at the top of the podcast. But this is the part that she wanted to mention again. She said that they were doing these activities at the top of South Table Mountain towards Castle Rock. During their meetings, they raised crosses and either burned them or wired them for electric light bulbs. According to the transcript, the crosses were at least 50 feet high and could be seen for miles around. My late friend, Lorraine Wagenbach, was raised on Wide Acres Road east of Golden. She was very young at the time, but she remembered seeing the line of cars filled with Klansmen driving out from Denver to hold their meetings on South Table Mountain. She wrote this: I can remember the long lines of cars that traveled the old Golden cement road in front of our house and then up Lava Lane, which is now Quaker Street, in the weekly Ku Klux Klan parade to Castle Rock. I recall people talking of their burning the cross, which I never really understood, but which I greatly feared. We could see the white hooded robes of the members through the open touring cars. Lorraine's family were Catholic, so they had good reason to be nervous about the Klan. So this week, why did someone go to so much trouble to carry the wood up the mountain, assemble it into a cross, and jam it into the rock? No idea, but it's always worth reminding people that Castle Rock is private property, and the people who put it there were trespassing and vandalizing. All right, so I went up there this week. It's that area I told you about at the top of the episode where I'd always felt like, okay, it does say private property, but there's a well-worn path up to the top of Castle Rock. What's crazy about this is I didn't want to go up there. I was scared to go up there, but my guides told me I had to, and I needed to bring some shungite, which has the resonance of love and peace. And I needed to bring a drawing or two that I had done by hand. And I needed to basically do a ceremony of sorts to say, love wins. So I did it. It was a very cold morning. The weekend before had been warm and sunny in 70s, and I had done some serious mountain climbing in the days prior. I think I totaled up to 10, 11 miles of up and down hiking in the mountains at altitude and above. And my legs were shot. Today was supposed to be my day off, I said to myself as I was journaling. And my guide said, it doesn't matter. Today's the day you need to go up and change the energy on Castle Rock to love and take away the hate and take away the fear and turn it into love. Oh my gosh. So I did what they said. I put on my active gear. I packed my backpack I put my dragon that my friend Monique Pliakis made for me. It's this orgonite dragon that's beautiful and powerful because my guide said, you need serious protection. I invoked my angels. I put angel oil on my forehead from my dear beloved crow sister, Molly. And I put on my hiking boots and drove to the base that I really like this path. It's called Shoshonite, and it is straight up for the first 0.6 miles. And I'm telling you, my legs were like, you lied to us. This was our day off. What are we doing up here? They were just screaming at me, but I just kept going because my guides had told me, and I followed them. So I get up to the top, and now the hiking's easy. But it was weird. There was silence up there. No one had gone up to hike. No one had gone up to bike. And there wasn't a songbird singing anywhere to be found. Not even the coyotes were out. It was eerie. I'm cutting across the top of the mesa and toward Castle Rock because I've never been there before. But then I got there and there were two older women that were staring at the interpretive sign that showed the Jefferson County designated trails, right? And they didn't include the trail to Castle Rock because you have to cross private property to get there, and it's on private property. But I walked past them onto the trail, and I really understood it because that might have been me a few days prior, but I was on a mission. I was a warrior. Had all my protections, and I was supposed to do this. So then I turned onto this little dusty trail, right? It's completely void of anything and anyone. Out of the blue, a stone is thrown at me, and then another stone. Both of them rolled onto the trail, and they were the size of a golf ball, but they were like this red iron stone. It was bananas. No one was around. 0 people. And because there was very little foliage in the area, you can see through the little tumbleweed type things up there. There was no one around. I knew it had to do with what I was about to do. And I said, nope, this is happening today. Deal with it. I have my protections. I've got a dragon in my backpack, folks. And I kept going. My shoe was untied. I bent over and I started laughing and I double knotted it again. Few steps later, the other shoe was untied. I double knotted it and I kept going. They did it a third time and I was like, just stop it. You're acting like children. This is happening today. A few more steps and right into my vision. And it's the weirdest thing because you have this natural butte on top of a butte, basically. It's these columns of stone, but on the side of it are the remnants of this old dance hall. And all that's left are these concrete steps up to the top. It was imposing. I was freaked out. And I was afraid of getting in trouble. I knew I wasn't going to do anything bad. I was just adding a little bit of granules of shungite and love to the space. So it wasn't vandalism. It was out of love and peace, but I was still nervous. I took a deep breath and I started going up the stairs. And on the third step, because I was hyper-focused on my feet, the toe of my hiking boots, to keep moving upward, a wind is pulling me backward. It is out of the blue, pushing me away from the stairs. And I'm like, this is happening today, guys. I look down, and in the concrete is carved the number 8 and the letter H. Keep that in mind. I had a really bad feeling when I saw it. I didn't know what it meant yet. I kept climbing up, and about halfway up the stairs, I saw the perfect natural formation. It's almost like a mini cave, a little den in the stone of this formation. And I thought, this is a perfect place to do the shungite, because I knew the shungite could leach into the dirt below and so bless the earth in that way, but also that the wind would circle and blow it across the top of the mesa as well. So I got up the trail and I scrabbled up some rocks and I put the shungite powder there and I said my loving words, and I didn't have any hate in my heart. It was just love and peace is the norm. It's not normal to hate people for the color of their skin, for their sexuality. None of that is acceptable. It's not tolerable. I was just so focused on this. And I put my drawings there as well, my 2 little black and white drawings, and I put some stones over them. I don't know why they were supposed to be a part of it, but they were. Got back on the stairs, went all the way up to the top, and I had a little bit of shungite left. And I put some of the shungite nuggets and some of the shungite dust into some of the rainwater puddles. And that was what I thought I was supposed to do. That was it, right? I went down the stairs again, and I did make a note of that 8 and that H, and I remembered something. Modern day white supremacists use the letter 8 for the letter H, which is the 8th letter of the alphabet. They don't write HH because it's too obvious. Sometimes you'll see 88 and it means Heil Hitler. That's what it stands for. No wonder it repulsed me. I keep going down off the stairs, and I gotta tell you, I just was sad for the people that were so, their brains so corroded, their moral code completely gone, that somehow they thought that at any point in time, they had the moral high ground by behaving the way that they did and perpetuating such disgusting viewpoints. I get to the bottom of the stairs, and it was almost like I had this tunnel vision to get on Castle Rock. So I didn't see it going to the stairs. And there it was, the base of a fireplace. It was a flat area, and then there was the base of the remnants of like a chimney or fireplace. It was a perfect rectangle. I saw it in my mind's eye. I saw people at night in their white cloaks and their white hoods, and they were like, there in the evenings, and I saw fire, and it just made me sick. And I knew I had nothing left to offer because I'd done it all up on the Castle Rock, but I went down and I had shungite on my hands, so I laid them on the fireplace and what was remaining of it. And I said my words, my mama bear, this is not okay. We only tolerate love and light now. This is not the norm. We only tolerate love and light. This is what wins. Love wins, not hate. Love always wins. And it felt really good to do that. And it felt like the land was happy. I turned around, and I'll be damned if there weren't all over the bushes around me, the scrub, songbirds singing. Yeah, it was interesting. I went down the dirt trail, and as I was going, I was just walking, and I felt lighter. I felt like something good had happened, that the land was glad that somebody acknowledged this awful behavior. And I said, I'm sorry. I am sorry for what had happened. Not on my watch. It won't happen again. We need to shine a light on this behavior now, right now in 2025. And we need to make amends for what happened back then. As I'm going down the path, I know you're going to know what happened. My shoelace was untied again. Yeah. I just laughed, and I said, I double knotted my shoe again, and I stood up and I said, first of all, you were a bunch of boys playing God up here. That's what you were doing. And it was all fueled by your fear. It was your insecurities and your fear. And I just laughed. I laughed and laughed and laughed. It was such small penis energy. I'm sorry to be so vulgar, but that's totally the feeling I got from what they were trying to do up there. I just laughed. I also told the energies, you're no longer allowed to follow me. And out of my mouth comes the Lord's Prayer over and over and over. I didn't realize till I was doing research later on. I'm talking like 2 or 3 days later, just yesterday, in fact, that I realized they really thought we're being really good Christians by doing these types of things. Oh, we call it a social club and we're very Christian. But no wonder the Lord's Prayer and me invoking my angels had an impact, and it pushed back on their energy. So do you think that's the cause of my neck pain? Yeah, no. I couldn't find any research that said that something happened to someone's neck up there, a hanging or anything else. I kept doing research though, because I wanted to understand. And my research revealed a murder. It happened years prior on the same patch of land. And that murder victim, her throat was cut ear to ear by her goddaughter. More on that after a quick break.
Hi, I'm Derek Condit with Mystical Wares. I've recently published 2 books. The first is titled Shungite Unveiled. It's an FAQ and hidden insights to the miraculous mineral called shungite and how it can be used to help save the bees. It also contains chapters on shungite and healing, shungite in plants, the Shungite Grid Project, as well as ways to use shungite with animals and in construction. So it's a large FAQ or accumulation of ways to use shungite in everyday life. Then the second book I released is called Everyday Magic, and it's inspirational stories of intuition and awakening. So it's a collection of 18 short stories that I put together that can help to explain some of the metaphysical aspects of our reality that we're all experiencing. Either of these books are available at mysticalwares.com or Amazon. There's also additional information on how to help save the bees with our Shungite Beehive project. That also can be found at mysticalwares.com, and we appreciate your support.
I found this from author Carol Turner. By the way, buy her book. Hell, buy all of her books if you love historical accounts. She is a meticulous researcher and an excellent writer. Here's her account, thanks to the connection she made with one of the involved families of a murder on Table Mountain. This is her chapter from her book, Notorious Jefferson County, which I just purchased, and it's available on Amazon. The links are in the show notes. This tale took place on Golden, Colorado's famous landmark, Table Mountain. In the late summer of 1910, a 59-year-old Denver woman named Maria LaGuardia vanished. An 1890 immigrant from Italy, she married Michael LaGuardia in 1875. The couple had no children. Maria was known to carry hundreds of dollars stashed amongst the folds of her clothing, and her worried nephew and niece thought she might have been the target of a robbery. They contacted Mrs. LaGuardia's goddaughter, Angelina Garamone, who, along with two other women, were the last people that had seen Maria. Angelina assured them that Maria LaGuardia was alive and well and had simply gone off to meet her long-lost husband. Because years prior, Michael LaGuardia had also disappeared after getting into some trouble involving a young girl. Family members were skeptical and did not trust Angelina Garamone, though the 1910 census lists her husband Luigo or Louis Garamone as a huckster, which is a vegetable peddler, and her occupation as nun. She was by all accounts a prominent and notorious figure in Denver's Italian community. 35-year-old Angelina was a small woman at 5'2" and 110 pounds. Although she later claimed she had lost 6 children, she had 6 living children, including a boy at the reform school called the Industrial School in Golden. She had recently moved out of her family home and taken her own room. The central figure in a series of real estate deals, she had allegedly erected over a dozen buildings in Denver. Some of these deals had gone bad, recently arrested and tried for forgery and uttering, which was forging checks. She was expected to be given a significant term in prison. Meanwhile, people still called her the Queen of Little Italy. She was also considered a witch and a soothsayer, and folks were afraid of her. Angelina Garamone had many enemies in the Italian community. Eventually, Maria's family contacted police, but the investigation went nowhere. About a month later, another woman from the Italian colony disappeared. Mrs. Dorinto Labata had been living as a wife with a man named Clemento Salanto when she vanished. Her body was soon found in a ditch in Adams County, her throat sliced from ear to ear. Authorities suspected Clemento Salanto, but he had a different story to tell. He said that Mrs. Labata was a partner of Angelina Garamone, and that shortly before Mrs. Labata disappeared, the two women had a falling out and dissolved their partnership. Salanto told police that Angelina had been in their home visiting with Mrs. Labata on the day the latter disappeared. Salanto went out for a while, and when he returned, his wife was gone. Angelina told him that Mrs. Labata had gone to visit someone in North Denver. She told police she had no idea what had happened to Mrs. Labata. Then, in January of 1911, Angelina was sentenced to 5 to 8 years on a forgery case. She was taken to Canyon City to begin serving her sentence. 7 months later, on August 1st, 1911, A young Golden rancher named J.M. Johnson Jr. was up on South Table Mountain, which was part of the Johnson property. Peering down into a gulch, he noticed a bit of blue calico peeking out from amongst the weeds. Something about it didn't look right, so he crept down the gulch and he had a closer look. To his horror, he realized the blue calico was part of a woman's skirt, and below that material were the remains of a pair of human legs. The shoes were still on her feet. Nearby lay a piece of skull and several ribs. Investigators who closed in on the Johnson Ranch surmised that the body had been hastily buried in the gulch at least a year earlier. The rainstorms that spring had washed away the dirt covering South Table Mountain's grim secret. Based on the shoes and the tattered bits of clothing, the victim's niece and nephew identified the remains of Maria LaGuardia. Also discovered near the body was a collar with a silver pin attached. Family members produced photographs of Maria wearing the pin. Police quickly zeroed in on the women who were last seen with Maria a full year earlier, Mrs. Conchita Fergone and her 19-year-old daughter Stella. The third woman, now in Cannon City, was Angelina Garamone. Interestingly, the man who claimed to have seen the trio with Mrs. LaGuardia was none other than Clemento Salanto. He told police he saw Angelina Garamone with the other women buying tram tickets to Golden in August of 1910. He stated that Angelina told him the next day that she had taken Maria to her husband. Police brought the Fergone women into the station and interrogated them separately. Officers escorted them to South Table Mountain, bringing the ladies separately to the spot where Mrs. LaGuardia's body was found. Upon arriving at the gulch, each woman blurted out a confession. The stories they told were very much the same. Angelina had informed Maria LaGuardia, who was illiterate, that she'd had a couple of letters from Mr. LaGuardia asking her to tell his wife to meet him up on South Table Mountain. At that time, South Table Mountain was a popular destination for hikers and picnickers from Denver, easily accessible on the tram. On August 19, 1910, the four women took the Denver and Interurban tram to Golden. Along with the Fergone women, the party consisted of Maria LaGuardia, Angela Garamone, and Angela's baby. The Forgionis said their job was to watch the baby. They arrived in Golden late in the evening, too late to climb up the mesa. The entire party, including the baby, spent the night on benches at the depot. At daybreak, they hiked up the trail to Castle Rock, a prominent butte on South Table Mountain. The party trudged around the mesa searching for the elusive Mr. LaGuardia. At some point during what must have been an exhausting ordeal for Maria, she finally became suspicious. When they were near a place the newspapers called Long Gulch, she announced that she was going home and began scrabbling down the gulch. Angelina scurried after the old woman, pleading with her not to give up. When Maria ignored her, Angelina pulled out a butcher knife. She clutched the old woman around the neck, exclaiming, "Oh, look at the big worm on your throat." Then she sliced Maria's gullet from ear to ear. After Maria died up on the mesa, the Forgione women watched while Angelina ripped open Maria's dress and found the money that Maria was known to carry. When she was done, Angelina shoved the body down the gulch, then kicked and scraped with the knife to send clumps of dirt down on top of the body. I read later that Angelina felt compelled. She knew she hadn't done a very good job of burying Maria, and so she came back and she forced the Forgione women to go with her, and they buried the body better. But actually, it seems like she came up there a third time with some burlap that her husband gave her, and he worked at the local cemetery. That same burlap was used with the other victim that I mentioned. But anyway, back to Turner's account. The three women plus the baby then trudged down the mountain and walked along the tracks to the industrial school tram station. At some point, Angelina noticed that her long military cape was drenched in blood, so she prevailed upon young Stella Forgione to cram it under a cattle guard. They also had stolen some holy cards from among Maria's things. They found these smeared with blood as well. The trio disposed of them down a crack in the station platform. Then they caught the tram back to Denver, where Angelina was able to make it to a required 10 a.m. court appearance related to the forgery charges against her. On November 6, 1911, Angelina was brought from Canyon City to Golden and arraigned on charges of murder. She pleaded not guilty, saying, No, I could not be guilty of such a crime as that. She said that Maria LaGuardia was alive, had gone to California to join her husband, and would surely show up to save her at any given moment. After 2 postponements, she went on trial on December 21, 1911. The prosecution's star witnesses were Conchita and Stella Forgione, both of whom had previously pled guilty to accessory after the fact with sentences of not more than 2 years, and no prison records exist for either woman. Angelina's attorney, Mr. Clover, created an uproar before the trial even got started when he tried to get the case dropped on the grounds that nobody had actually proven that Maria LaGuardia was, in fact, a human being. Oh, she very much is. The paper quotes him as saying, "Why, how do we know but what Maria LaGuardia is a racehorse or someone's cow or something? There is nothing in the information to show that she was a human being." The patient judge excused the jury and spent some time apparently researching the legal issues around human beingness, after which he overruled the motion and got on with the trial. When opening his case, the DA explained to the jury that Angelina was considered a soothsayer and that the Forgione women had kept quiet for an entire year because they were terrorized by her and believed she would cast a spell on them if they had told about the murder. The proceedings went slowly, as most of those involved spoke no English and the interpreter, Frank Potestio, struggled with the lengthy translations. Maria's nephew, Dominic Tito, testified that the day after Maria's disappearance, he asked Angelina where his aunt had gone. Angelina, apparently unconcerned about anyone actually checking on her story, told him she had sent Maria to her husband at El Dorado Springs. As the days, weeks, and months went by, Angelina continued to answer his queries with the promise that Maria was fine and that he would hear from her soon. During the trial, Angelina's smiles and, quote, flashes of wit kept curious spectators entertained. When D.A. Morgan asked her to remove her coat and gloves, she smiled at him and said, "I guess this is just a little garden party." He complained about her undue frivolity. Angelina pointedly asked the sheriff if he had a rope ready for her. The Rocky Mountain News had nothing pleasant to say about her, writing, "Miss Angelina Garamone, whose name has had somewhat the same effect upon the Italian colony of Denver for years past as the hiss of a snake upon a band of monkeys." Conchita and Stella Forgione both testified, relating nearly identical stories that deviated little from what they'd already told detectives. Although young Stella was described as pretty, the mother was described by the Rocky Mountain News reporter in colorfully unflattering terms. During her testimony, Conchita often glanced nervously in the direction of Angelina, but, quote, looked everywhere but into the dark eyes which the Italians believe have hypnotic power and can read their thoughts, their very souls, end quote. Mrs. Garamone leaned upon her elbows and transfixed her accuser's back with a steady stare. As Mrs. Forgione said, she grabbed Mrs. LaGuardia by the hair, pulled her head back, and she said, "Oh, godmother, you have a big worm on your throat." She cut it with a butcher knife. At the end of the day of Conchita's testimony, Angelina spoke to reporters. She lies, just wait and you will see. She will be in hell before she gets through. She will think it over in Canyon City. There is lots of time to think in the penitentiary. She won't look me in the eye when she lies. She is afraid. Prosecutors brought a box into the courtroom containing what was left of Maria and showed it to the jury, piece by piece. Angelina reportedly laughed during this process and remained unmoved until they brought out the skeletal foot, still wearing its shoe. Mrs. Ann DeMoto, Maria's niece, identified the shoes as belonging to her aunt and fondly recalled tying the laces for the old woman when Maria wasn't feeling well. She testified that she recognized the blue calico because she herself had made the dress for her aunt. Fino Bella Garamone, Angelina's son, testified against his mother. He and his father, Angelina's estranged husband, Luigo, had given police an earful about how Angelina had cheated her husband out of a large sum of money. The defense rested on an alibi that placed Angelina in Denver the day and night before the murder and the fact that she showed up for her 10 a.m. court appearance on the alleged day of the killing. The prosecution disputed this alibi with testimony from an employee of the industrial school in Golden, who said that he saw 4 Italian women at the Golden Tram Depot that night, corroborating the Forgione story. Clemento Solanti also testified that he saw the 4 women get on the tram to Golden. There was considerable speculation during the trial that Angelina had either killed Solanti's wife, Miss Labata, perhaps because Mrs. Labata knew about the LaGuardia murder, or that Angelina at least knew something about the killing. Mrs. Labata's murder was never solved. But that burlap that I told you about, it was linked to Angelina's husband who worked at the nearby Mount Olivet Cemetery. And they used the same burlap fabric there as was used around the bodies of Mrs. Labata and Mrs. LaGuardia. And both were sliced ear to ear. And also, that cemetery is very close to the foot of South Table Mountain. Turner's account continues thus. At the end of a 1-week trial, Angelina testified on Thursday night for 2 hours. She insisted that the Forgione women were lying. She said that Maria's missing husband had sent 3 letters, which Angelina read for Maria because Maria was illiterate. Mr. LaGuardia, she said, was a fugitive from justice and ran off because the Italian community was going to hang him. She claimed that one of the letters said, "Dear wife, I will come to Denver the Saturday before St. Rocco's Day. Meet me at the Loop at 15 minutes to 10, but for the love of God, don't tell the family or let my nephew know. You know why." Angelina testified that the long-lost Mr. LaGuardia showed up when the ladies were sitting on the bench at the Loop. Mrs. LaGuardia rushed into her husband's arms. The blissful couple boarded a tram for El Dorado Springs, and that was the last anyone saw of them. Golden Police Chief Armstrong later testified that Angelina at first told him that she had put Maria on a Golden car, but changed her story to El Dorado Springs. Angelina also claimed that on the day before the murder, she was in Denver. First, she had gone to her attorney's office, then to the city park with the 2 Forgione women. They all spent the night in a room at a rooming house, not in the tramway depot, as the Forgones had said. During the examination by her attorney, Angelina protested that she was not capable of such a terrible crime. Attorney Clover asked her if she had ever hurt anyone or whipped her own children. "That's why I left home," she said, "because I would not whip the children. I could never stay around when a chicken or a duck was killed." She claimed that Mrs. LaGuardia was alive and that the entire affair was an elaborate plot constructed against her by the members of the Italian community in revenge for losing their money in various real estate deals. She said she had been in danger for many months from a diabolical figure named Clyde Casiadente. Her attorney, Mr. Clover, spent 2 hours arguing on her behalf. He accused the DA's office, court employees, and law enforcement of conspiring to bring about the death of Angelina Garamoni. She was simply a victim of jealous persecution and revenge plots. During this speech, Angelina broke down and cried for the first time. Oh my God, that's such a narcissist thing to do. Attorney Clover did not bother agreeing with Angelina's theory that Maria was actually still alive, but instead proposed that the long-missing Michael LaGuardia had killed his wife. Clover's other tactic was to discredit Miss Forgone, which wasn't difficult. He brought up a horrific event from 1893 when Conchita Forgone and her 10-year-old son had been arrested for torturing her 6-year-old daughter from a previous marriage. Conchita and the boy had burned the little girl's back, breast, and private parts with hot flat irons and burning sticks, then hung her by the neck from a bedpost. Rescued by neighbors, the child was removed from the family, thank God. Although the boy said his mother was the ringleader, he was sent to reform school for 3 years, and Conchita got only 6 months in the county jail as an accessory. During their summation, the prosecution surprised everyone in the courtroom by demanding the death penalty for Angelina Garamoni. At 8:30 on a Saturday night, December 23, 1911, the jurors, described by the Denver Reporter as the Stern Farmer jury of Jefferson County, retired to deliberate the case. The following morning, they announced they had reached a verdict, and Angelina was brought back in. She hid her face while the jury shuffled into the courtroom. The court clerk read the verdict: guilty of first-degree murder with a sentence of life imprisonment. When asked if she had anything to say, this was Angelina's reaction. Mrs. Garamoni's wonderful smile again came into evidence, and she tossed her head and said, "Well, you can tell them this one thing. My conscience is clear, and that will keep me from being unhappy. I know I didn't kill her, no matter what the jury thought. Mr. Clover has asked the judge for a new trial, and maybe I will have better luck the next time. Maybe Mrs. LaGuardia will hear by that time and come and save me." After the trial, Angelina came up with yet another explanation for the murder, this time laying the plot against her at the feet of Conchita Forgone's husband. What will they think when they learn that the body found had been thrown in the gulch by Nicola Forgone? Nicola Forgone, she repeated, who works at the Coronado Cemetery. He robbed a grave and put some of Mrs. LaGuardia's clothes on the stolen bones that I might be accused and gotten rid of. Oh, they planned well to keep me forever away. I hope they have sweet dreams. God bless them. Nicola Forgone was Conchita's second husband, who had survived a knife attack by her first husband back in the 1880s. Maria LaGuardia's remains went to their final resting place in October of 1911, and I have to make a note, it was she's laid to rest somewhere at Mount Olivet Cemetery, but I have more to say about that in a bit. The morticians reported that it was a hard proposition to dress up just a few bones so they would look like a body. On May 24, 1922, after Angelina served a little over 10 years, Governor Oliver Shoup commuted her sentence, and she was released on parole. Public records show glimpses of an Angelina Garamoni in the Denver area during the 1930s and 40s, but it's impossible to confirm her identity. After the murder of Mrs. LaGuardia, Stella Forgione changed her name to Ethel Jones. After Angelina was released, Ethel left Colorado and moved to Amarillo, Texas, where no one had ever heard of the LaGuardia murder. I want to give a huge shout out and thank you to author Carol Turner for that amazing, meticulous researching and writing. And I've got links to her books in the show notes. I've ordered 2 myself and I'm diving into them. She gave me permission to share this account with you here. This morning over coffee, I realized that the pain I'd suffered in my neck, That was Maria LaGuardia reaching out. It had nothing to do with the KKK and Castle Rock in that sense. Maria wanted me to know her story and share it. After I journaled, I knew what I needed to do in an effort to help Maria have peace. I bought an arrangement of flowers at a nearby King Soopers. I turned my car left onto Quaker Street and I drove to the foot of South Table Mountain. I took a peach-colored rose up the trail and I asked Maria for a sign of where she'd been murdered. Up I went, and then I saw a flash. Up an unmarked part of the hill I went. It was strange to have a perfect sun-bleached rectangle shape surrounded by wildflowers. It was also surrounded by rabbit brush and grasses. I kept going up, and there it was, a literal sign. It had blown here in winds we'd had this week. I laughed, feeling Maria's sense of humor, and I told her I was sorry she had suffered such a shocking, violent death. No one deserves that. I took the rose and I nestled it into the rabbit brush, and then I picked up the sign. I also picked up 3 old Coors cans that had been sun-bleached, and down I went to my car. I stuffed the litter in a bin, and I drove to Mount Olivet Cemetery next. I'd done research on Find a Grave, and yes, there was a grave for Maria LaGuardia listed, actually, too. But the one with the right dates, born around 1851, death 1910, was not marked. I couldn't find it. So I went to the other Maria LaGuardia, who no doubt was a relative. And some websites say this is also where the older Maria was interred. I don't know. But there is an older concrete base beneath a more elaborate full gravestone. So I wonder. It felt right though. I think Maria knew my heart's intent. I placed the urn of flowers there, and a hawk flew overhead. In the days to come, I'll wander Block 10 of the cemetery to see if I can find or if I even feel a location for Maria. And if I can get some concrete proof evidence, I will update her account on Find a Grave. But she feels at peace. And the least I can offer is to share the story of her tragic end. The other thing I'm struck with is plots of land where something awful happened. If we don't change the energy of that land, that place, there's an attraction there for people that are vibrating the same way. Hate-filled, jealous, fearful. And then that land becomes almost like a capstone is there, a spiritual capstone. And I didn't want other people to be attracted to Castle Rock and to Long Gulch because of this violence, fear, hatred, bigotry, anger, racism, you fill in the blank. So this isn't the episode I had queued up for this week, but it's the one that wanted to be shared. If I stand at a distance from it all, I'm in awe. One street, Quaker Street, it led to both the tragic murder scene of Maria, and it was the road used by those KKK members to drive up South Table Mountain to do their hate-filled, disgusting crap by Castle Rock. And that was a little over a decade later. What's interesting, besides the road and the geographical location that joins these stories, is that some of the people detested by that KKK group, they were Catholics, including immigrants from Italy that had resided in Jefferson County for a decade or more. Maria LaGuardia had passed away by then, but her community was one of the targets of this hateful group. I can't help making the connection to the present time as well, which I'm sure you did right at the top. Fear and hate are coalescing into a sick kombucha that if we don't shine a light on it right now and call it out for what it is, say out loud that this behavior is unacceptable, then what happens next. It's like going along with something awful. No, we have to say it loud. Love wins. Love will always win. Until next week, stay curious. I love you. Hi there, it's me again, and I just wanted to add a couple facts that I found last night about South Table Mountain that weren't in this episode, but I found them out last night, and they're just too big and too surprising to be on one geological formation to not mention to you. The first is that it's debated who found it. There's two different names. But the very first T-Rex bone, it was a tooth, ever found in the world, it was found on South Table Mountain. Isn't that interesting? It was found, all I could find there's no geographical specific location. They just say the west flanks or the west bank of South Table Mountain. Isn't that so intriguing? And the second one is going to blow your mind. Have you ever heard of the KT layer? It's a layer in geography of a strata of stone that is dark. It's usually like a charcoal color, and they believe it indicates, because of the time frame of it occurring across the world, that is the indicator of the cosmic dust, the asteroid dust or whatever that settled over Earth and caused the dinosaurs to go extinct. Well, that's the KT layer. The very first time scientists found that layer, identified it, and called it out for what it was, the KT layer. Yeah, that was on South Table Mountain. It's about 60 feet below Carl's Point, which is on the east side of the mountain plateau. And I hope I've got that right. I think it's on the east side. Let me do north, south. Yeah, I think it's it is. It's on the east side of the butte, and it is 60 feet below Carl's Point, which is pretty easy to find. Carl is this amazing person that this gorgeous panorama is named after, because he made it his job, and he was a lawyer. He put in hundreds and hundreds of hours to making sure that South Table Mountain was preserved so that we could all go there and enjoy the nature of it, and that, the birds would have it as a sanctuary and such. And he did so much more. I think he established 20 plus parks in the area as well. And that's one of the things I love most about the Denver area. So right below Carl's Point is the KT layer and it's so important that a geological association had a birthday party, a 50th birthday party, a national group, and they had it right there where the KT layer was first identified. Anyway, I felt like I couldn't leave you without those two amazing facts. What are the odds of it being in one geological formation? Such an interesting place. It's so overlooked. Anyway, keep your eyes and ears open. I'm sure there's surprises around your neck of the woods that are just waiting to delight you. Until next week, stay curious. I love you.